Right, you're going to have to bear with me because I've got a head cold. But in February of 2023, I was lucky enough to visit White Castle in Monmouthshire, which is one of the three castles, a sort of triple lordship composed of White, Grosmont or Gromont, and Skenfrith, which were first clustered together, I think, under the reign of King Stephen. Made it a triple lordship. King John then passed them on to Hubert de Burgh in 1201, and during that period, Hubert de Burgh made a lot of improvements to the buildings, including greatly rebuilding the stone curtain walls, the mural towers, the gatehouses, etc., etc. And in fact, according to Wikipedia, this has been described as a masterpiece of military engineering. Of course, anyone who knows the North Wales castles might disagree, but nevertheless, it eventually passed into the hands of Edmund, Earl of Lancaster in 1267, and later remained with the Earls of Lancaster until 1825. So let's see what it's like inside. I'm grateful to Cadw, the Welsh organisation which looks after ancient monuments in Wales, for this plan. You can see central there the inner ward, which is surrounded by a large wet moat. You can see also the grey walls themselves are the earliest construction, and they seem to date from about the 11th century. Hugh de Burgh then added further construction, and there may have been the demolition of a Norman keep to the south. And eventually, further improvements were made in the 13th century, including these great drum towers. So that would possibly tie in with the Lancastrian period. Above, to the north, there's that outer ward, which we will be seeing. And there are evidence of further earthworks both to the south and also to the east. So this is White Castle in Monmouthshire, and let's have a look at some details. I recorded this with a live soundtrack, and it was late in the day, we were all tired, and I hadn't read the guidebook properly. So I have made some cuts later which may sound a bit odd, but let me briefly explain. I didn't understand the gatehouse. Unusually, this has an exterior portcullis, which you can just see visible here. Cunningly, when the drawbridge comes up, the drawbridge completely hides the portcullis behind, so it can't be damaged, etc. by attackers. And also unusually, the drawbridge pit is located well in front of the gatehouse rather than inside the gatehouse. So all up, bit of a different design, and the same features were sort of encountered at the outer gate, but because I've started the film at the inner gate due to lighting considerations, we'll deal with the outer gate later on. Here we are standing in the outer ward of White Castle, and we are facing the inner ward structure ahead of us. There's a series of three castles: White, Skenfrith and Grosmont or Gromont, built in a sort of triangular formation several miles apart. These belong to various Monmouthshire lords, originally dating from the late 11th century as Norman Mott and Bailey castles. They were later substantially rebuilt in stone. This one, White Castle, is thought to have been the first one to receive a stone rebuild. If we look down below there, you'll see the inner ward has a substantial wet moat around it. So almost a typical Hollywood style castle. And then if I then traverse modern bridge here, there would have been a wooden bridge and drawbridge there. Behind us there is the outer ward. I'm actually going to pan in on the backs of the towers. The outer ward there, one tower there, another one over there, round to here, and again you'll see most of these outer ward bastions or towers have open backs. Now the reason for the open back tower, especially in outer wards, is to prevent the tower being reused by the enemy if captured. So if you keep it open backed, if anyone gets inside, you can then shoot into them or at least see them. So we have an outer ward here, and according to a guide board I saw just now, there's a further enclosure further over where a visiting army could have massed outside, ready to move on elsewhere. These castles played an important role in the wars against the Welsh. The Anglo-Norman lords spent a lot of time fighting along the Welsh border, and this is an example. This one's called White Castle. As to its name, many places in Britain that had the word white in front of them were previously whitewashed or lime-washed. It's possible that this could have been a brightly lime-washed castle. Although we would call it white, it normally dulls out into a sort of a grey or normally a sort of off cream colour. Second shot from here. This is the gatehouse into the inner ward. There would have been a drawbridge somewhere in the vicinity where I am. And if you look at this wall over this side, you can see that every 4 feet up there are lines of squares running across, and they are put log or putt log holes. The wooden scaffolding would have been inserted into those during the construction phase. It allowed the men to build up, build up, build up, and that's the entrance. My original soundtrack in this area contains some inaccuracies, so I'm going to try and correct it a little bit now. We are actually inside the inner ward. We have the foundations there of a kitchen, bakehouse and other buildings. The towers themselves may have been used for residential accommodation, but you would also have had probably a hall arrangement, cooking, facilities to make things comfortable. The towers appear to be open backed. They are in fact not. The tower backs have actually collapsed off, or the stone has been robbed. Over there you can see more foundations for ancillary buildings. Also somewhere in that area was the Norman Keep, which of course is now missing. The buildings had a bit of a bashing. Stone robbing in modern times is not unusual. But you can see here that this tower certainly had a full back, and none of these were open back. They were full residential towers, but there the remains, at least of the foundations at the back, are visible. More footings there for internal buildings. And to correct my previous soundtrack, the walls and towers here all date from the 13th century and onwards. On the foundations of an original Norman wall, which itself may have been originally a wooden palisade. So this is an ongoing process from the 11th to about the 14th century of construction. Right, here's an illustration of what, or reconstruction of what the inner ward would have looked like. If any of the non-British people are having trouble reading that first line there in red, that's because it's written in fluent Welsh, you see. And round here, Welsh is the predominant language. So, looking down, you can see the towers, as I suggested, have got closed backs, but there's a lot of brattices and hoardings. There's the timber structures over the tops of the walls, and these overhang here, as we also saw at Caerphilly Castle. These will hang over the walls and allow material to be dropped on any attacker immediately beneath. Gatehouse is just visible over here, got its own brattice or hoarding on top. In later designs, such as at Raglan, that is replaced by matriculation. So they recreate the brattice or hoarding material, which was previously in wood, and they turn it into stone as matriculation. Same effect, allows you to drop material from above. If someone's trying to burn your gate down, it allows you to drop water. So we've got a hall, a chapel, various other necessary buildings inside the castle, bakehouse or malt house on this side, kitchen, and various towers would have been used for residential accommodation. There's also a suggestion that there was actually a previous medieval keep somewhere in this area, possibly a square structure, and when Hubert de Burgh comes in, he demolishes that and replaces this primitive round wall. Right, we're down in one of the basement of one of the round towers. These have had some of the dressed stone picked out. The arrow loops would have been much smaller originally, more like that one. Prevents people climbing in, also allows defenders to shoot out. The other important function down here is to provide lighting. If you look above, you'll see square holes here and evidence of other holes here, which suggests there might either have been a floor at some stage or even a vaulting. And if you look up again, there's actually a ledge up there and sign of more beams there and there. So there's possibly at least two floors. No, I'm counting 3 floors. 3 floors inside this tower, and basement accommodation down here, and the ability to shoot out. As I explained earlier, I rather misunderstood the inner gatehouse. So in fact we actually have an external portcullis, an external drawbridge pit, and then we step out from that position out to the next shot you see, which is me looking down into the moat. So I've edited out my doubts on their reconstruction. Down there is a quite enormous ditch visible. It's wet, and the far side unusually has been revetted with an enormous stone wall. In fact, in some areas there's almost as much stone down there as there is on this side in the castle itself. So you've got an enormous amount of revetment from there up to there, height of nearly 30 feet, and a wet ditch below. Now the reconstruction here is going to argue with me. I said no portcullis, they're saying portcullis, but they're showing the portcullis on the outside of the building, which is rather unusual. There is a slot high up, it could be right, I might have been wrong. And they're also showing the drawbridge close in. I think it would have been further out, but they're saying there. I'm going to go with their reconstruction. Up on top here we have the Brattice hoarding arrangement, but now actually being used to house the windlass mechanism for pulling up the portcullis and pulling up the drawbridge. And they're also showing a drawbridge pit in front, but built a long way out into the moat. There's no present remains of that, but I'm assuming they know more than I do. So this is a reconstruction of the inner gate of White Castle. This is early 13th century. Right, this is the back of one of the towers in the outer ward. I said previously that these were probably open backs, and can you see here how the stonework is dead straight on both sides? That's not a collapse, that's as built. You might not be seeing it in the shadow, but there's evidence of a floor being inserted there, and there's an arrow loop further up shooting out, and 2 more giving flanking fire the other side. So this is an example of the back of a tower on the outer ward. You keep it open backed so that should an attacker get into it, it creates no cover for him and he can't really use it. You can shoot at him, he can't defend himself, and its your ability to defend the castle continues. Because of the evening February sun, I've reversed my usual procedures. I've started at the inner ward and worked my way out. We're now at the gatehouse in the outer ward. You will see that the back of the gatehouse here almost certainly had a gate, and there is a drawbar hole, an extensive drawbar hole passing right through. Porter's accommodation on either side, here and here. And I did note as I came in that there is a portcullis slot just there, just visible there. So it confirms there's a portcullis slot here, and these very good people are standing right over the drawbridge pit. And if the drawbridge had been up, they'd have fallen in. Thank you. Yeah, this is the Cadieux illustration of the reconstruction of the outer gate. And if I'd have seen this earlier, I might have understood the inner gate a bit better, because it's virtually a copy. Same situation, we have an unusual external portcullis sliding up and down outside the building,
and then when the drawbridge comes up, it effectively covers the portcullis and gives it extra protection. It doesn't protect the portcullis from the rain, so it would like to get a bit wet and perhaps rot a bit quicker. But nevertheless, the portcullis is there. Drawbridge over the outer dry moat comes up. Bob's your uncle, Nelly's your aunt. We've done the job.
Right, unusually I filmed this one in reverse, simply because it's late in the evening, shadows are lengthening and the sun was facing the wrong way. This is the way in. This is the wall of the outer ward, and you can see a lot of the stone there is missing. Now, being closest to the entrance of the castle, that's the stone that has been stolen first. Stone robbing from historical sites in Britain is quite common. This is what's left of the outer gateway into the outer ward. There is a substantial drawbridge pit down there. Trust me, I've had a look at it. There was at least one portcullis, at least 2 gates, and we have drawbar holes through the walls on each side. And swinging around here, you can now see across the inner moat towards the inner ward. The big gatehouse where I started is over there, where those people are. And then the back of the castle continues around. Big, deep, wet ditch there. Much more shallow, dry ditch in front of us. According to some site notes, there may have been a further enclosure out on this side, which might have given cover to a visiting army. So this is White Castle, South Wales, not far from Abergavenny. This is White Castle in its heyday. The outer entrance is here. We have an outer ward extending around this way. The backs of the towers on the outer ward are all open backed, so that defenders can still shoot into the back of them and they get captured. And over here we have the inner ward. This has been a Warspite production. If you've enjoyed this, please leave a thumbs up. If you've really enjoyed it, please feel free to subscribe. I look forward to seeing you next time. This is Warspite out, and have a very good day.